So, welcome back to the Real Football Show, where this is a special today with Madeline and Sam. Both have been on, and let's go straight into it with men's soccer because the thing we have to talk about is handball. It's been turning the Premier League upside down, especially with it following the IFAB rules that, it's extremely harsh and kind of ignores the part where we talk about intentions and stuff like that. Sam, I'm sure you would have takes about handball just being in the game and how it could affect like especially scoring opportunities when it comes to them in the box.
Yeah, I mean, are you alluding more so to what happened with United?
With United, with the Spurs, with the
Yeah.
generally uptake with penalties regarding handball in the Premier League.
Yeah, it's been hard because I mean, I feel for these referees because there's no I don't know. It's definitely difficult to decide, and especially now with VAR, it just is tightened that much more. Um, I thought the United one was the right call, because his hand did directly get in the way of the trajectory of the header. And I feel like that is where the line needs to be drawn, is like, did the hand impede the ball going in or where it was going to go? Because sometimes your hand is just down here and the ball just hits it. Like, it happens. Um, but it's definitely controversial. And again, I think that was the right call. I don't know about Tottenham, but it definitely does create some issues because, people think like, oh, well, it touched his fingernail, so therefore it's a penalty kick, which I don't think that is necessarily true. But it's definitely causing some disruption in the game, which is annoying and not fun.
So, two of us left here now. It's a timing thing, technical difficulties thing early on. So let's hop back into handball because it's a great point of contention. Like we had a short conversation about it, even like yesterday, about how we're talking about the intention, of course, far, but then in my opinion, part of what makes soccer good is how hard it is to score and how hard it is to convert your opportunities in the box. And now with this role, you see the uptake of penalties and projected numbers are skyrocketing despite of course there are only 3 weeks in the Premier League. What do you think of like the early goings of the stages, like how this is going to do, and then specifically with the Premier League saying that they might soften it a little bit to, basically curb the numbers of penalties?
I think handball is like one of the most controversial topics in soccer. I mean, it could always go either way, I feel like, and it's really like each situation is different. So, does it make sense to change the rules? Maybe, but still, I feel like no matter what you do, there's always going to be conversation about whether or not it's the right call.
Mm-hmm. Like especially we like all three of us as mentioned earlier, it's gonna be about far a little bit. And personally I don't mind it. There's something that it's right, and if it's wrong. Like offside. Although the Premier League somehow still manages to screw it up with the whole like drawing the lines on the VAR screen thing last season. They took it off. If it's an offside, it's an offside. And we could contend on that later if we get deeper into VAR. But then with handball, it's so much about the intention and stuff. If it's like new mope, like if his hands are up there, then yeah. But what if you're in the wall, you're gonna like cover up or something, or like you turn around to block a shot and your hand's right behind you and it hits you? Like if your hand's tucked into your torso, is it a handball? It's just a point of contention that would never end. It seemed like in soccer, like you said, it's probably one of the most controversial things, and the end of it is just like, what are they gonna do? And it's part of it. It's just keeping the matches more watchable. And let's see how it develops. If the softening of the rules is true, but that's all we have for handball right now. Let's move on to more stuff. Let's talk about Barcelona because they're stupid. Um, of course, with the whole Messi thing earlier on, now the team's starting to fall apart, making pretty dumb moves with like Arthur going to Juventus in exchange of a way older Miralem Pjanic, who has the virus right now. He can't even play for a little bit. But then the most I guess recent stuff they sold off their B team captain, or they're trying to sell him off. Ricky Puig, who put on some really good performances towards the end of the season. Ronald Koeman told that he would not be in his plans, especially this season. Basically giving Luis Suarez away to Atletico, your team, and he's looked really good the first match. And also Jean-Claire Todibo, who is one of their best center back prospects. There are talks of him going to Fulham and being ditched by Barcelona right now. So we could always start at Bartomeu and whatnot, but what do you think the biggest problem with Barcelona is, especially with their controversial, but I would say stupid decision making?
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of puzzling because Barcelona used to be a team that would develop a lot of great players from their academy. And now it's like they're focusing on buying players with high transfer fees and all that and selling their young players, which, I don't know, doesn't really make sense to me. So, I mean, I don't know how to explain it. I think the club really needs to take a different direction, hopefully elect a different president. But if they don't, I don't really see them going anywhere.
Yeah, especially like when you talk about a lot of the big teams, you need to bring in players with your revenue or the lack thereof revenue of a certain other team. But then it's like you still need your young players to come up and be good because they're more under your control, I would say, and more like they have been with the club for longer. They know the culture. They shape up to be leaders instead of relying on a 34-year-old Gerard Piqué. I'm not sure if he's even 34, but that's around their age with like Piqué and Busquets and Messi and whatnot, and they could only hold on for so long, and then that lack of young players, be it selling them or not being on par, really hurt the team in terms of future development. And now they're stuck in that predicament, like you said, with buying players and hoping that they work out. But then players like Ousmane Dembele and Antoine Griezmann haven't really been working out for them. Let's go over and talk about United. Of course, the biggest point of contention, Jadon Sancho. They're still kind of underbidding what was expected for Borussia Dortmund. And to start off, like from my end, their performances to start off, not good enough, of course. Lost to Crystal Palace at home, got saved against Brighton with that new Mope handball and whatnot. They definitely need players. I still think they need at least a left back and a right winger and maybe a center back, because stability has been the issue ever since Ferdinand and Vidic left. That's way back into like 13, 14, 15. So what do you think they should do? Should they just shell out all the money for like Telles and Sancho and hope it works?
Well, I don't know. It's interesting because I've seen people compare like United's transfer window with Chelsea's transfer window. And Chelsea, they've made all these signings, getting all these deals done, and getting the players they want. So it's definitely a different story with United, and I'm not sure if it could work. I mean, from what I'm hearing, it seems like Dortmund don't want to sell Sancho. So I'm like not really convinced that it's going to happen, but you never know. So, I mean, definitely they should keep trying, I guess, but something's wrong with their direction, I feel like.
Yeah, something's wrong with like way up there with Avram Grazer and Ed Woodward and whatnot, definitely, especially with even not looking at Chelsea. Let's look at City. Like, they screwed up pretty badly the past week. Go back and check out the episode I did with Ben about Leicester's win. But then, dude, they were like, okay, come on, Ruben Diaz, let's pay it. Let's pay him $65 million and come over. And what United have been doing, apart from like Van de Beek, who kind of popped up like within a week or a week and a half or something, like those players that they're linked to, even with Reguilón, who went to the Spurs, they have been talking about it like for the whole summer. Nothing happened. No official bid. All they said was like, oh, we agreed to personal terms with like Sancho or Telles or Reguilón or whatever, and they never could, get it done in the end. And that's frustrating and that's stupid. And I feel like the whole board should just be fired. And fired into, I don't know, Jupiter or something. But in close connection, we're talking about Jadon Sancho. Let's talk about Borussia Dortmund, a team that you and I actually both like to watch. But then it also gives us some form of heart attack, I would say. Let's start. The thing is that I feel like right now Dortmund is trying to play their young players too much, perhaps. You see great players, of course, Jude Bellingham, Giovanni Reina, they have, or like even Renier Jesus, who was on loan from Real Madrid. They have been playing minutes for them, but then it feels like they lack a little bit of stability, especially seen in that Augsburg game where they're like Augsburg has been a tough out for them. I think they've lost like three. I think they've lost like three straight matches to Augsburg in the Bundesliga. But then if there are players like Julian Brandt, who's proved last year that he's one of the best players in the team, why don't they play them? So of course, stability questions aside, what do you think contributes to Dortmund's kind of early season ups and downs when it comes to this season?
Well, I think it's often like this with Dortmund. They'll have a few experienced players, but then they try to bring in a lot of youth, and the roster can kind of look pretty different from season to season. So I think right now it's just like those growing pains again of like trying to bring in a bunch of young players and trying to get them experience and have them develop. But then, also they haven't really played together and they're young and inexperienced. So that can kind of happen. I'm not really surprised, but I'm hoping that they'll figure it out eventually.
Yeah, but then my biggest thing about, or my biggest ire about this team setup is that they haven't really lost any players. Like Hakimi, yes, but then they brought in Meunier. It's kind of the same deal. Like the back could be mostly the same. Even like Meunier could be a better right center back than Hakimi if need be. And then like even midfield players, like the biggest gripe I have is on Julian Brandt. I really think that he's one of the best players apart from like Haaland, or production-wise maybe Rafael Guerrero like last season, and he's not even being included. I know there's like early injuries that he had like in the preseason, but then this whole thing that just doesn't make sense when something's working and then now you shift it away from it, and then like what are they like? Stability is their problem with their team itself and their performance, but then now Lucien Favre seems to screw it up more, and look at those attacking numbers against Augsburg. That's just not good enough. Now, it's all you. Your time. Let's talk about PSG and Atletico Madrid. Start with PSG because, of course, they've still been doing well, apart from early on in the season where, they don't have like their four best players simultaneously. I don't know where they went for vacation or whatnot. But then, what are your early observations of this team? I wouldn't ask about Ligue 1 expectations because that's always to win it. How far can this squad go, especially after last year's, I would say, breakthrough in Champions League, but now, like, Di Maria's, out 4 games. Neymar might be in a little bit of trouble with the, racial kind of stuff that happens and stuff like that.
Well, I think I was really impressed with the team last season, the way they progressed in the Champions League, which was a huge breakthrough for the club. So, to be honest, I can't really be mad at too much right now, but the team struggled, for obvious reasons. There were a bunch of coronavirus cases they had to get through, injuries, of course. So, the rocky start doesn't really come as a surprise, but I think, as usual, they're going to get a little more consistent and they'll probably end up on top in the league. Champions League, not really sure, but I mean, based on what happened last year, I feel like they should be able to put up a good amount of competition.
Mm-hmm. Of course, very weird transfer window. We don't see PSG doing as much business as compared to past seasons, but then also their roster turnover has been a little bit more contained, I would say, with players moving in and out. So do you like the squad's chance like a year removed, like a year older necessarily, just going into next season?
I do. I like how, obviously we've kept Mbappe and Neymar together, and they can keep building on their chemistry, as well as kind of the rest of the front six. I'm still kind of unsure how I feel about letting Thiago Silva leave, because, I mean, while we do have, some other good center backs we can play, he brought a lot of experience and leadership to the team. So, I'm hoping that we can still maintain that and keep a good team atmosphere so they can hopefully do well. But, I am a bit disappointed about the lack of action in the transfer market. So we'll see how that goes.
Let's not talk about what the French FA president said the other day about racism not being existent, and move straight on to Spain, where that could also be a problem. But let's talk about Atletico Madrid. Of course, their expectation has always been like third, fourth, get in the Champions League, maybe wrestle something from Real Madrid or Barcelona. Of course, big moves this season, especially with Luis Suarez. They took a little bit of time kind of figuring out squad stuff last season. Joao Felix looked better. I would say he looked better. Marcus Llorente, surprisingly clinical striker when you play him up front. Very early goings in the season. Again, what are some of your takes on how the team's shaping up, especially with Suarez and Costa? And then also just general expectation stuff, and do you want to see like an extra move or two? What are the team's needs and stuff like that? Very general.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty excited about the team's chances this year, especially with Barcelona and the mess they're in. I feel like maybe we have a chance. But I really like the Luis Suarez signing. Obviously, I haven't really been like a huge fan of him in the past, but I think for Atletico, he brings a lot going forward in the attack. And just the other day, they scored like 6 goals in a game, which is like kind of unheard of. A lot of draws, a lot of 1-0 wins last year. So I'm hoping for a different story this year. And as always, I think they could use more signings, maybe midfield or defense. But I think the attack right now looks pretty good.
Do you think like they need, like, for me, I feel like just looking at the squad and the way they play, of course, it's always been rather compact on both sides of the ball. Do you think they needed a little bit more, probably like a more disruptive winger, considering it's like what Correa and Vitalo and Thomas Lemar on those sides, and they're kind of like lacking that extra push if like Trippier and Renan Lodi not come up?
Maybe. I've always liked Lamar as a player, and I thought he was a good signing, but he hasn't really impressed the way I guess he was supposed to. But I also feel like he should be given more chances, more starts. So I'd kind of like to see how the current squad does with the wingers especially. But if you can sign anyone, then great.
Yeah, that's a general thing. And like one more question quickly about Atletico. What do you think about Sal kind of with Koke? Like Koke has been playing way more in the right, which kind of bemuses me because of his lack of pace. But then Atletico is not all about that. But then it seems like they've been locked in the central midfield now. Of course, 2 basically rather homegrown products they have been with the team. So do you feel like barring a highway hijack, like paying $130 million for Sal, like you guys are set in the middle of the park?
Yeah, I think so. I love both of those players, and I'm glad Atletico's been able to keep them for so long. And I think that's really great. So as long as they can still keep them for a few more years at least, and I think we're pretty set in midfield.
So that's actually all we have for this special. Of course, Sam, Madeline, still with me here. Thank you very much for coming on. Definitely expect more of this. Just, ideas being tossed around and just, good old soccer talk. So stay tuned. We'll have more content coming up. And yeah, thank you.